Let's see what is to come up next. A bird's eye view of the pharma landscape in India will be discussed at the last panel for the day. I'd like to welcome Ashi Anand, Head Portfolio Management Services, Allegro Capital Advisors, Chintan Kothari, Head Healthcare Investment Banking at Avendus Capital, Manish Gupta, Managing Director, Sequence Scientific, Venkat Bundla, Co-founder and Managing Director, Garfi Biosciences. This panel will be moderated by Ranjit Menon, Partner and Executive Director, Chirate Ventures. Over to you, Ranjit.
Thank you. Uh, uh, warm welcome to everyone. I think, one thing is very, very clear that, globally, I think across many industries, this is a huge transition point. And then I think Indian pharma industry is also, in my view, going through this whole huge transition for a whole host of reasons, ranging from the global pandemic to geopolitical, which is more local to us. Uh, but I would like to focus this discussion on today on the opportunities that the situation is kind of throwing up to us. And to start this conversation off, I'd like to ask Manish to share his insights on if you think about the API business. I mean, if you look at the early 90s, India is fairly self-sufficient. And today we are at a standpoint where 70% of this is imported from countries like China. Now, how can we kind of leverage this crisis situation? What is the landscape, and how can we kind of leverage this crisis to get back to being self-sufficient, Atmanirbhar in that sense?
Thanks, Sanjay. If you trace the history and success of Indian pharma industry, most large companies of India today actually have their origins as API companies in 70s and 80s. This was, of course, largely facilitated by the change in the patent regime that occurred that time, the infrastructure or the GIDCs and MIDCs of the country, which provided the infrastructure of land, building power, and common ETPs. That is also, of course, very critical. And of course, finally, the Indian entrepreneurship, which came in the front at that point of time. Starting 90s, however, the Indian companies started moving away from this trend and focusing on the formulations, which was perceived as a more value-added industry at that point of time. API industry also comes with its own inherent challenges of higher capital intensity as well as lower ROC as compared to formulation, and therefore China gradually stepped in, and in fact subsequently has been dominating this space for last few years. India now has become not only a net importer, but is also fully dependent on imports for all our essential medicines. And in fact, our API industry is significantly dependent on imports of our key starting materials, again from China. I think the blue sky policies that China adopted at the time of Beijing Olympics and the subsequent FDA actions was a wake-up call for the Indian industry and also the world as a whole. And that has only accelerated recently, given the recent developments, and in a way it has woken up the government finally. I believe these developments open up significantly long-term opportunities for both the API industry in India, as also as the world corrects its over-dependence on China. Being both capital intensive and of course long gestation business, the catch-up will take time. And I believe this opportunity is a minimum 10-year opportunity for the Indian industry. While the existing players and infrastructure would benefit from improved demand and prices, the larger environment, which includes the manufacturers of KSMs, the capital equipment, and also the project teams, will also benefit from the larger capital inflows in this industry. Lastly, since this is a platform of Mumbai Angel Network, which is a platform that brings together both capital providers as well as young entrepreneurs, I would highlight that there is a significant opportunity for the younger entrepreneurs in getting into the KSMs or the key starting material space. Many companies, including such as ours, would be willing to partner if anybody would like to get into that space as we move towards de-risking our business.
That's like gold in terms of information as far as a startup is concerned, knowing that large companies are willing to kind of partner. Ashi, to you, I mean, if you think about the overall, pharma industry is extremely fragmented. Drugs are developed somewhere, clinical trials happen across the world, distribution happens, completely all over the world. It's completely, done in different parts and requires a, fairly robust global supply chain. I want to understand from your perspective how opportunities are there for technology to play and how startups can make a play here, especially given the fact that this industry is fairly distributed across discovery to manufacturing to distribution.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks a lot for having us on the panel. So if you just look at it, pharma is an inherently complex kind of subject. The chemistry itself is kind of complex, and there are a lot of regulatory challenges, etc., that need to be kind of taken care of. So there are different parts of the kind of pharma value chain, all of which I think technology can play a vital role in terms of actually helping enable Indian companies to play a larger role in the overall global pharma supply chain. One key area would really be around clinical trials. There's a lot that technology can help around helping aid kind of people going in for clinical trials, aiding in patient recruitment, data tracking. There's a lot of regulatory compliances that need to kind of be taken care of to ensure that the clinical trial data is all considered by the regulatory authorities. So clinical trials is kind of one clear opportunity where technology can play a serious role. I think one of the other areas that we've seen a lot of Indian companies actually struggle with is regulatory challenges around facilities. Right now, the compliance required to meet FDA regulatory standards are fairly kind of complex, and there are a very large number of checks and balances that need to be put in place. We've seen a number of Indian companies actually falter on this and leading to very expensive kind of shutdowns that they have to take and very expensive regulatory corrective actions. If there is some kind of technology mechanism that can provide senior management, some kind of a dashboard of all the kind of compliances that are there and some kind of scoring on red, amber, green in terms of where the company is kind of completely on track and where are the other kind of areas that need improvement. It's something I think could aid a lot in terms of helping reduce the significant costs of regulatory deviations that happen. A third area, I think there is kind of potential significant role for technology to play is if you study pharma, there's a very significant amount of profits that actually emanate from a few specific large drug opportunities. The whole Pareto principle of 80% of your profits coming from 20% of your drugs, right, holds true in pharma, if not significantly more. There is data which is available. So there's a lot of this IMS data which is available, but this is kind of complex to kind of go through and sift through to actually find and identify those specific opportunities. I think around the data analytics space, possibly with some help of AI, etc., if there are opportunities for a technology platform to actually identify specific opportunities for supernormal profit, that is another kind of space that could really help companies quite a lot.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you very much for that insight. Chintan, to you, just on the OTC side of this, right? How do you see this OTC market developing, especially given the fact that there is also tremendous interest from the FMCG side? So you have FMCG on one side, you've got the pharma companies on one side. So how do you see this coming together, and what's your view on how this landscape can pan out?
Thanks, Ranjit. And first of all, thanks to all the frontline healthcare workers and all the entrepreneurs who continue to run healthcare businesses amidst this crisis. And hopefully we'll have a vaccine in the next few months. I'm very confident about that and have some insider visibility on that. So fingers crossed. Look, OTC is a very, very interesting subject, right? Because we use the term OTC, but the fact of the matter is that there is no OTC regulation in India today, right? While the term is fine, there is no OTC regulation. I know at the government level, there are discussions that are ongoing. There is a drug consultative committee that has been formed to see if we can have OTC regulations. I do believe that OTC is a very important area. It has the whole concept of self-medication around drugs that address basic ailments, analgesics, basic digestives, vitamins, as well as any wellness foods, etc. That is available at a chemist or potentially even at a retailer going forward, can be a huge boost where you don't need a prescription. I think that needs to be balanced, obviously, with the quality of what is made available across this channel. Clearly, I think OTC is a very, very attractive segment. We look at the scale of the market at over $4 billion. For the pharma companies, it's a fantastic market where you leverage your knowledge of R&D, and you can build brands that don't have the regulatory pressures that you typically see in the traditional pharma prescription business. You can leverage the same channel, and you can have deep profits on the back of these brands. For the consumer companies, it's a fantastic opportunity to drive higher margins, because typically an OTC brand, unlike a personal care or a food brand that takes 3, 4, 5 years to get built, OTC brands take a much longer. But once these are built, these operate at higher gross margins, higher EBITDA margins than your traditional consumer brand. So it's a great opportunity. These are higher growth segments relative to the traditional personal care food side that you see on the traditional FMCG side of the business. So I think all this makes for a very compelling case for consumer companies. So you've seen the likes of Hindustan Unilever globally, Procter & Gamble, Dabur in India has built a very large OTC business. Emami has built a business. Or you look at some of the pharma companies, Zydus Wellness is a spin-off out of Cadila Healthcare, which is one of the largest pharma companies. Piramal, Lupin, Cipla, Glenmark. So there is a true convergence that we see that is happening within OTC, and we believe the market will continue to be very attractive. I think what is very interesting for the entrepreneur community that we are talking to today is this whole digital platform and technology that presents a fantastic opportunity to create scaled brands that didn't exist, let's say 10 years back or 15 years back, right? Because as I said, these brands take a long time to build, but what we've seen in the last 3, 4, 5 years is the ability to leverage technology. And if you have a white space and a differentiated product, you can really leverage technology to scale, right? And a classic example is a brand like Muscle Blaze, which has become, in a short span of time, they identified sports nutrition as a white space, used the digital platform, got funding at the right time, and really kind of, scaled and become a, 200 crore plus brand, which is unheard of in India. It sounds small on an absolute scale basis, but, to build that kind of scale in a couple of years and create a true brand is quite unique. I think from my standpoint, we've heard a lot about technology. I would just finish by saying what to me has been disappointing around overall Indian pharma is this whole lack of innovation in India, right? We're just so fixated in this country with the mindset of lowering cost, lowering drug prices. Everything is low cost, low cost, low cost. And there is a, real kind of, I would say, flip side to that. And the biggest cost of that is the fact that the innovation in an engine in India is pretty much non-existent in pharmaceuticals, right? Just giving you some data points. China in the last 4 or 5 years has spent over $40 billion in venture capital towards biotech funding. India, if you aggregate the capital raised in India, strange as it may sound, over the last 10 years, new capital going towards pharma, listed and unlisted companies over a 10-year plus period is $1.5 billion. So what is extremely disappointing to me as a advisor to this industry for the longest time is just that we don't have an innovation engine that needs an entire ecosystem between venture capitalists to emerging companies to universities to the government and the large corporates. And how does this entire ecosystem come together to really drive innovation in India, especially on the pharma side of the business, is going to be interesting.
So really, it's very, very valid, Chintan. I mean, we are a venture capital fund, and we've been operating in India for 13 years now, and there are not many pharma or biotech companies that we've funded, right? And so I can completely echo the statement that you made and understand the sentiment. It's also, I think, it's a space that is fairly complex to understand, long gestation periods, right? I mean, having said that, you see this much lot in China and in the US. And we do not have investors who understand the space very well. I think that is one of the biggest challenges. But I think the good news is that we are opening up to this opportunity, right? We've invested in a couple of them as we speak, not because we understand the space, but more just backing the entrepreneur. I think we need to make some baby steps somewhere, and that's what we've done. But like I said, long way to go. But great segue into to a question that I wanted to ask Venkat around e-pharmacies, right? I mean, it's tremendously hot space right now, right? Amazon getting into it, Reliance, NetMeds, Pharmacy, MedLife, OneNG raising capital. I mean, there is tremendous amount of activity here. Regulatorily, I mean, it's still not very clear. So how do you see this, Venkat? I mean, your thought process on all of this, and then how this could pan out?
Thanks, Ranjit, and thanks Mumbai Angels for having me. I think it's the same story like OTC. That, as you rightly said, the regulatory framework is missing, but e-pharmacies should be very helpful in terms of furthering access of Indians in general and improve adherence or bring up the standards in the retail and distribution business through good distribution practices, etc. Worldwide, online business is valued, is estimated to reach almost $200 billion plus by 2025. And it has been growing year on year at around 12 to 15% annually. So it's a large growth. In India, it's still in its nascent stages. It's having started in the last 4 to 5 years. It's only should be around 7,000 to 7,500 crores. But make no mistake, it's estimated that by the year 2022, it could be anything between 25,000 to 30,000 crores, which would be a stupendous CAGR of almost 60 to 70%. In terms of household penetration, I believe currently about 4 million households are using some kind of online pharmacy access for some of their daily needs. But by 2025, it's with all these people getting in, obviously you would see somewhere around 60 to 63 million households using and adopting this. As you rightly said, there's been a lot of flurry of activity. Amazon launched its online pharmacy last week in Bengaluru, and I believe Walmart is looking very aggressively to pursue on this because they are again very hung-ho in terms of online medicine delivery in India. Reliance has concluded then majority stake in NetMeds, and the merger of PharmaLife and PharmEasy, and MedLife has created almost a combined entity of valued at $1.2 billion. So one of the major challenges now for us moving forward would be the complete lack of regulatory framework, I would say, so by default, currently e-pharmacies are adhering to the Drug and Cosmetics Act of 1940, Drugs and Cosmetic Rules of 1945, and Pharmacy Act of 1948, and the Indian Medical Act of 1956. So that's going to be the major challenge of all these companies. And apparently, there is a lot of concern amongst the companies and the investors because the government has been working on bringing about advisory and framework for the e-pharmacy draft rules, which has been delayed for whatever reasons, I don't know. But one thing also helped is in the last 6 months, there's been a considerable surge in online pharmacies. Now, the second major challenge would be is at the political level, considering that the All India Chemists and Druggists Organization, which is a 8 to 9 million lakh strong organization, which represents the offline bulk brick and mortar chemists, are going to challenge this tooth and nail. In fact, they're believed to have shot off a letter to Jeff Bezos saying that it's on the Amazon's online pharmacy is illegal. The third, as I see it, would be in terms of the supply chain issues. In India, as of now, there's absence of barcoding at the manufacturer level for the domestic production, though it's mandated now by DGFT for all the exports since the last 2 years. So that's going to be a big challenge for some of these. And second, the business model as compared to the US or say European, this thing is going to be different. The reason being there's no pharmacy charge for dispensation. The fourth major is in India, I mean, the value proposition is going to be a very big challenge because we are mandated to print our MRPs on the patient packs. So, and already the neighborhood chemists are offering various kind of cash discounts, free home deliveries, and it's much faster. You just ring up and within an hour or two sometimes. And in some of the Mofussil towns, tier 2, tier 3 towns and villages, many of them even offer credit. So that's going to be another big challenge. And the last would be in terms of the last mile delivery for some of the critical medicines and vaccines which require cold storage. So virtually there is an absence of storage, of cold storage logistics services. So that's going to be another major challenge. And having said that, I think, so there is clearly a demand, there is clearly a need, and the potential is large. So it all depends how various stakeholders would work together to address some of these issues.
Thank you, Venkat. Now, I know each of these topics we could have spent 2-3 hours discussing and, to reach any kind of a conclusion. But, if each of you can take a couple of minutes to just consolidate your thoughts on these spaces, especially with the, entrepreneurial lens, given that, Mumbai Angels is really focused on building out from the grounds up, right? From an entrepreneur perspective, how do you see this and the opportunities that you see, and a couple of points each, just to kind of bring this all to a closure. That'll be a great end to this. We can go in the same order.
Okay, yeah, so I'll start on the API front. Clearly, there are enormous opportunities, and these are there for keeps in a way for a long time. There are opportunities which are both small and big, but it requires patience. Nothing in pharma comes easy, and it cannot be valuation loaded. It has to be the basic hard work. That is, the valuation is the outcome. It cannot be the goal as far as pharma is concerned. And if you have the patience, please come to us. We will work together. That's my message for all the younger entrepreneurs.
Very encouraging, Manish. We'll definitely ask some of them to contact you.
Ashi, from your side?
Yeah, sure. So there are two broad points I wanted to kind of touch upon. The first thing is there's a lot of excitement happening around the whole China de-risking API opportunity. But it's important to kind of understand the whole ecosystem that China built that actually made them that successful. And, it really provides India a blueprint in terms of what needs to be done. So this would broadly be around the whole integration of the chemical industry with pharma through creation of chemical biotech parks. because key starter materials is something where China is very competitive on. And if we as India have to import key starter materials from China, it is going to be really difficult to compete on the API stage. So if you're just broadly looking at Chinese costs currently, they're about 15 to 20% cheaper. These benefits come from key starter material. It comes from lower electricity costs, lower infra, etc. If we have to succeed as a country in the API opportunity, this entire ecosystem that China has used to develop the market is something that's very important for us to also develop. The other key point I just want to touch upon is something that Chintan was referring to, which is the whole moving up the kind of value chain, right? So while it is kind of important to look at this very large opportunity of getting market share from China, which is 46% of the API industry versus India at 5%, if you look at the number of developed countries that still manufacture APIs and to quite large scale, right? So Switzerland, for example, 6% of is actually a larger share than India. Belgium, which is an extremely small company, has a similar market share as India. Germany, Italy are all still reasonable kind of components. Now, compared to the penicillin antibiotics, low margin, low ROC products that China kind of competes in, these are higher up the value chain, but really provide entrepreneurs who are willing to put in that investment of being able to develop these technologies, the ability to earn higher returns and generate a lot more kind of value over the long term, as compared to investing in more commoditized, low margin businesses, which inherently can only earn that much in terms of an ROE.
Excellent. Chintan?
My advice to our entrepreneur friends would be that the opportunity is phenomenal. I think, as I indicated, there are lots of white spaces today in OTC, that can be tackled. One has to be patient and really make a difference to the consumer, build long-term sustainable brands. One can also look at the traditional pharmaceutical businesses, pick a therapy area and go deep. So going deep, really delivering a very differentiated value proposition, and building something differentiated when you're starting, from ground zero, would be tremendously well received, and I think capital would be available. I think if the idea and the early stage execution is good, capital will definitely follow the idea.
Excellent. Venkat, from your side?
One to add on, I think somehow we missed out on the AI and machine learning angle. I think especially that would be very relevant for the API industries. If you look at the production linked incentive schemes also, the focus is on increasing capacities and improving on efficiencies, both in terms of infrastructure and products. That's where I feel, specifically in the APIs, what happens is it's a batch processed, discrete event kind of stuff. So one step is done, then there is a halt, the samples are taken, analyzed, and then you're taken up to the next level. So this is where most of the pharmaceutical industries of late have been moving towards continuous manufacturing. That's where AI and ML can help in terms of playing a larger role, not only in APIs, but in formulations, in improving the efficiencies and unlocking value.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, because of lack of time, I can't delve deeper on that.
No, thank you very much, Venkat. I mean, we are just on the dot, I would guess. I mean, just to summarize this conversation, and this could have been much longer if we could have helped it. But I would summarize this in these following 3-4 points. I think opportunities exist in kind of leveraging technology to kind of enable the pharma companies, both in terms of efficiency and in terms of discovery and so on and so forth, but also in looking at brands, OTC brands. I think that is an area that there is opportunities that we can look at, right? And the other two takeaways are that from people like us are opening to looking at pharma and biotech. I mean, it's happening very slowly, but I think the investor community is opening to, opportunities here to kind of back entrepreneurs trying to develop some of these things here. I think that's the positive. And the biggest I would take away is, the fact that there are large companies that are looking for solutions and partnering with startups who are small. I think that, should be a very, very strong opportunity for, all of you guys. And I would, as soon as this is over, I am expecting Manish's inbox to be kind of bombarded with a lot of stuff, right? So, thank you very much, gentlemen, on that note. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much, Mahesh, for putting us all of this together.
Thank you, Ranjit, and thank you, panelists, for this really delightful exchange of ideas.